Hello and welcome to ATG, the podcast, and I'm very pleased to be talking to Thorsten Fröhlich today. Thorsten, you're from Cologne. Were you born in Cologne?
Yeah, close by. I was born on the countryside in a rural area about 50 kilometers east of Cologne in a small village with 800 inhabitants. So Cologne was for me the big city.
And how did you get interested in chemistry?
I was always interested in chemistry. When I finished high school, I was thinking about what shall I do, and I was thinking of becoming a teacher. But at that time, employment was difficult, and so I decided to go on just one topic, and that was chemistry, which I liked a lot at high school.
And this was at the University of Cologne, where you stayed for your doctorate, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. I came to Cologne and then started studying chemistry. And then after the thesis, I decided to do my PhD in physical chemistry at the same location.
And I believe your PhD was not so much lab work as more kind of managing data.
Yeah, absolutely. At halftime, probably when you do a bachelor's degree normally, I encountered that computers are more interesting than laboratories. But I wasn't brave enough to stop the studies, so I decided to move into a department where I had the chance to combine both the chemistry and the computers. So I went into computational chemistry.
And did you continue as a chemist after your doctorate?
No, during my doctorate, I already worked, and I founded my first company together with one of the lecturers at the university, and we started a software business for the pharmaceutical industry. And I finalized my PhD at home in the evenings.
Fascinating. And what did the startup do?
What we did was actually, remember this is a couple of years ago, we equipped analytical instruments with AD converters to make the data digitally readable and then comparable to whatever data you have from different vendors. And was not like today where you have everything in a compatible fashion. So you had to do a lot of things to bring data together. And this is also where I made my first publications about standardizing outputs from computers to make the data exchangeable between different vendors.
So, do you think this is where you got your interest in the impact of digital and which has led to sort of your subsequent career?
Absolutely, absolutely. I was always fascinated by computer systems, but there was no formal education at my university at that time. So a lot of things I did was self-taught. And so I bought all the American standard books on programming, read them, tried them out, were fascinated. I thought they were so advanced. And so I learned over the years that even without a formal education, but together with the knowledge as a chemist, you can excel in a niche market.
And subsequently, not only did you have your own startup, but I believe you've been advising and a business angel for other startups.
Yes, in 2000, I was constantly attending conferences all over Europe and in America. And in Berlin, there was a conference of the German Society of Chemists, and where a lot of young people, students from other universities, were presenting what they have done and what were their ideas. So I met 4 students of the Free University of Berlin, and they had a great idea. At that time, Google was not that advanced, and they had the idea of having a search engine for the web for chemical information. And this is where I invested and said, that's a great idea. We have to do this together. And that's where it started.
And Did it work? Is it still going?
Yeah, it's still ongoing. It's the biggest portal in Europe nowadays. It has all the languages you need in Europe, plus Spanish, and so a big community also in South and Middle America. And because it has changed from a search engine into a B2B marketplace for analytical instrumentation and supplies. So this was due to the big success of Google in searching and so on. So it was no competition. So it had to change over the years, but it was organic growth. We had the 25th anniversary this year, which is quite an achievement.
And just for the benefit of users who might not be familiar, listeners who might not be familiar, what does a business angel do?
A business angel is someone who takes away all the obstacles young founders see in the first place, like bureaucracy, identifying the right business model for what they want to introduce into the market, being a sparring partner, questioning their approach in a critical manner so that they are doing the best they can do at the end, and also probably helping them not to do all the mistakes those business angels have done in their past.
And then relatively recently, I think 2019, you went back into academia. Why the switch back to the academic world?
That was quite an incident. One of my PhD students during my first business was a professor at that university, and they were looking for someone who had a large experience in the worldwide market, so from a practical aspect, but also have the skills to educate young students and also to somehow inspire young students in that field. And I started with a single lecture on a series on industrial software engineering. That was the profession where I was coming from. And then they asked me to apply for a professorship, which I did in 2019. And I successfully went through the process and started there. First part-time because I was running the businesses and so on. And since this year, I'm full-time and just interested in education.
So this is quite a transformation. You've moved from a research chemist to startups and then into academia in a completely different subject.
Yeah, that was always my interest. I also ran an art gallery for 15 years, which is also a different thing. So some people think I'm a kind of a Renaissance guy, doing all these different things. But my interest is in general. I'm very curious at a lot of things and open to new impressions and the questions which came up with that.
Well, one of the remarkable things that you've done that I noticed is, although many people write a thesis, but not many people write about how to write a thesis. And in 2023, you co-authored a book on writing a thesis. It's quite a tome. It's over 700 pages. So, what prompted you to write on this topic?
As a professor, you have to supervise a lot of different student theses in different domains. And we have seen that, for example, a bachelor thesis or master thesis have a lot in common, except the depth, and also capstone projects or MBA programs kind of different. But the majority of things are the same. So you have to be analytical, not descriptive. You have to be able to critique what you read. You have to be critical against opinions in general, and so on. But a lot of students have no experience with that. At an international university like we have a lot of students from all over the world where their experience in writing is not the same like in classical British or American or German universities. And to make their life easier, we put together everything what is good and everything what is bad together with evidence so that it is helpful for them and not to have to read the book to write a thesis, but it's more like a companion. If I'm unsure and I don't know why, then I can look in such a book, which is different from just asking Google and so on, because everything what we have done here is based on evidence.
So it's not a book to read through from start to finish. It's more like a reference book, you say.
Yes, exactly. So, for example, if you are not familiar with the philosophical stance of your research and you have never heard about that, then you can read where it's coming from, what's the idea behind it, what is the idea of positivism and post-positivism, why it's so important for the research and so on to understand these concepts. If you know that, you don't have to look, but you're unsure what kind of literature review you are trying to make, and understanding that the narrative-oriented review is different from a systematical one or hermeneutical one. That's it, where it makes a point, and that was the idea.
So the book is quite a mixture. It has, as you say, philosophical background, but as well as practical tips. But there are even jokes. That's quite a sort of quite a combination.
Yeah, I think even somebody thinks the authors are nerds, but we aren't. We are normal people and we like to have humor, and we're also coming from face-to-face teaching. And there you have to be very genuine and you have to engage with students and so on. And humor is always a great way of transporting what you're trying to teach.
You published the book open source. In fact, I think, as far as I can see, you actually founded a publisher to publish the book. Is that correct?
We didn't want to wait for a publisher. We had the chance to go with a publisher, but 700 pages editing process, peer reviewing process is a very long time for a book which contains also parts which are very actual, such as artificial intelligence and so on. And we had the fear that it would take too long and that everything what we wrote there is outdated the day it was published then. That was the reason why. And we are not really interested in making money with it. It was really something we want to contribute to the community as simple as possible.
Have you had feedback from users?
Yes, absolutely. We have feedback from all over the world, a couple of thousand downloads on the different platforms from America, South America, Canada, to Asia and Australia. A lot of feedback. It's so diverse, the use and the need for a good material, and this is a good sign. This is also why we have the second edition now, because we updated parts based also on feedback we received from practitioners and also from students.
And very enterprisingly, you got AI to review the book. So what did the AI say?
Yeah, what we wanted to do is to have human feedback, but not many women want to read 700 pages in a short time. So we said, okay, let's ask all the leading AI tools and use their deep research feature so that they check everything very thoroughly. And it was very positive, especially because, as you said, there's no combination of this starting from the philosophical foundation to the defense meeting at the end, and with all the also critical view on a lot of things which are done in science, where we have a totally different opinion, and also show why our opinion is different.
So did you pick up any tips from the AI reviews?
Absolutely, absolutely. They also mention things where we can improve in the future and so on. And like in a normal project, you have to find the balance between going to market and being even more comprehensive, because the AI always says, yeah, you can enhance this one and you can enhance that one. And then we are running into 1,000 pages at the end, which is more frightening.
And not satisfied with writing about theses, I see you've just this last month co-authored an article about building an AI tool to evaluate theses. This is something called, if I pronounce it correctly, Rubiscot.
Yeah. Yeah, the Rubiscot is my research since 1.5 years now. After writing the book, I also wanted to be in a position to evaluate a thesis in a fair way based on criteria which are well known. At the same time, I want students to help to get advice on where there are their shortcomings. So it is a two-folded project. And this is something where the human in the loop stays there, which is very important. Decision is made by human, but I do all the checks based on human knowledge. So against the expectations coming from the book and not just from a Google search or from a large language model. So I want to make sure that the process is not probabilistic, it is more deterministic. So that at the end, I can compare in a fair way all the different theses.
So tell me a bit about this. Typically, when you ask a question of a large language model, it uses its corpus to provide answers. So in what way are you inputting your own views into the Rubiscot model?
In the Rubiscot model, we don't train the model. What we do is we use prompting and semantic embedding. This means I use an RAG pipeline where I have an expectation document for each criterion of a thesis. If you write an introduction, I wrote an expectation document. If I write a conclusion, I wrote an expectation document for the conclusion. And to every part, I wrote also a rubric. So this is where Ruby comes from in Rubiscot, so that I use a structured chain of thought process by using ROG documents plus rubrics to express my opinion of what is good or what is bad.
So is the intention that...
And the difference is I don't rely on the LLM at that time.
So is the intention that this is used by students or by professors or both?
It's intended to be used by both.
So you can...
Because students, the way I do supervision is I am in contact with the student and he gives me certain things for reviewing. I'm not reading line by line because it is a task of students to think things, but if there are structural problems, things they have missed and so on, I don't want that they fail. I want that they have some hint so that they understand what is the meaning of this and that and what do we want there. So it should be both.
This is remarkable because I'm familiar with, there are now many tools that help you write an academic article, looking at the structure of the introduction, the methodology, and so on and so forth. But I don't know of any tools that help you to write a larger piece like a thesis. Do you think this model will be useful sort of in many domains, or is it just built for science?
No, it is completely independent from the domain. So as long as the normal scientific process is used, you do research based on how you do research, it's independent from domain. You can use it in medicine, in philosophy, you can use it in social sciences. It's the same. What might be different is that the approaches, so the expectations, may differ a little bit, and this has to be adapted to domain-specific expectations. But the principle behind it is the same. What I've done also is, because the book is written in English, I created a custom GPT with the book as the reference. And with the custom GPT, you can ask question whatever language. And I made the system prompt in such a way that it is not authoring for you, that it gives you hints. If you ask question, it explains, but it doesn't do the work for you. And this is the idea behind it. It should be a sparring partner for you. You can challenge it. You can ask, I've written this and that. What do you think? That is okay, but it will never rewrite or create a better version of it.
So your book on writing a thesis, which I think you mentioned the second edition, which came out this year. So the difference between the two editions is, of course, the arrival of Gen AI in the meantime. So summarizing what you've just said, you're saying that Gen AI is not useful for actually writing the thesis, but for commenting on what you have written.
Yes and no. If you are not a native speaker, it's helpful, absolutely. And I cannot deny that. But what is important is, and this was also written in the article where we got in contact earlier, that students more and more are forced to use it, to become dependent on it instead of using it for reflection. And this is a danger I see. And this is also what we see in the way we designed our assessments nowadays. And we have to move to different approaches there, where students, if they use AI, which is not a bad thing, but they have to show how they use it and when it makes sense, and that they were able to critically look on what the output is and how it complements their own thinking. Because at the end, when you graduate and your employer finds out that if the internet went down, you're not able to do anything because you are so dependent, then we have created the wrong education.
So there's another initiative of yours, which is looking at AI, which is about an AI competence checklist. How did this come about?
I wrote a paper for myself about competencies, human competencies, and related them to how can I support these with AI, or how can AI help me to use these competencies and also to develop these competencies furthermore. And then I said, okay, let's create such a checklist, because people like checklists and so on. They like games, they like to excel there. But the goal was not to measure, really. What I wanted them is to use in a gaming way a questionnaire. And at the end, I hope that they have seen the different aspects and that they have a learning from that, and not what goal achieved at the end. It was more about starting a self-reflection process.
But the challenge with any kind of self-evaluation survey is that people tend not to reflect. It's a bit like sort of asking people how happy they are. That sort of doesn't give you very good results. Do you see this the competence checklist as a way of helping to develop people's skills, or is there a way you can use that competence checklist to move on to improve your use of AI?
I don't really think so. I think, as you said, there's a self-bias. I want to excel, and I know this question, if I click on this one, then it looks better. And that, I don't see any really great success in such questionnaires. But by reading the question and seeing what are the different stages, I hope that someone recognizes, aha, that is it all about. Probably some people never heard about what is a metacognitive skill. What does it mean, or what are intercognitive things such as working in teams and so on and so on. Never thought about those things. And I'm pretty sure if you once read it, not if you rush through it just to win the game, then you have at least something to think about.
So, in your classes with your students, do you think there's a set of skills that is relevant and can be taught for AI?
Yes, this is especially the comprehension there where it starts. So it can be of help to comprehend a topic, especially for those students who are having problems sometimes with the language and they needed further assistance there. The second then is to be able to critique what you are reading, that you understand. There's a difference when you compare it to a pocket calculator between 1 and a million, so that there is some understanding of the probability that the answer could be correct. Not only that it sounds correct, but that I understand that I have a reading literacy which develops to an AI literacy somehow, but I must be able to understand what are the consequences of the output. And finally, the collaboration, the co-creation, which is also something which is very useful. So once you learned how to critically use whatever AI system you want to use and produce something valuable, this is a skill which you can train with AI. So being creative in writing, being creative in developing new ideas, being creative even in a product can be taught with AI.
This sounds fascinating. It sounds like along the lines of your Rubiscott tool for helping you to write a thesis. Do you think it might be possible to write a set of tools that would help you through the entire scholarly process of sort of, as you say, the literature review and finding out, so search and discovery and so on and so forth?
Yeah, you can do that, absolutely. But I'm careful with that. To be honest, I think the writing process of a thesis is the final proof that you're able to show all the skills you learned in the years before. You can put together in a context and develop something which is primarily coming from you. And this also creates kind of, when you look back into your career later on, you can be proud then of doing that. Other use of AI at the end will only support the imposter syndrome in the future, because you're never sure, is it your work, or you think the whole day, oh, next morning someone is showing up and he encounters, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just an imposter. And I know that a lot of intelligent people also in teaching always have the fear of being an imposter. But this is because they are so critical with themselves, which is a good thing because it creates motivation. It motivates them to be more curious, to learn more, to read more, and so on. But you have then a basis, and this is also a basis of being critical and understand what are your skills and also what are your limitations, which is also a very important part of your knowledge.
But isn't this a little bit like a replay of the situation when the internet started and search engines came in, and many people, librarians particularly, were very critical, saying this is cheating because instead of looking things up using a library properly, you're just asking Google. Isn't that the same kind of critique going on now with Gen AI? People saying it'll make us lazy, we won't be able to think.
Yeah, on the one hand, you're totally right. It's very comparable. But on the other hand, we see that we have a much different situation. When I wrote my PhD and I have found a paper in the chemical abstracts, for example, then I had to go to the central library and ask for a copy. And this could take up to 3-4 weeks until I got the original copy of it. But nobody was expecting that I had to do the work within 2 days. But what we have today in the work, the density and the expectation of being quick in a high quality and so on, makes it a necessity at the end to use tools as much as possible. And also we have seen with the upcoming Google, yes, the expectations were there to be faster, to be more productive in shorter time, and so on. So I think it's some kind of egg and hen problem. What is pushing the direction, the demand for more productivity, or the ability to be more productive, and so on.
You've talked about using AI responsibly and being able to explain, if you like, your working, your thinking, and not rely too much on Gen AI. There seem to be parallels between this use of Gen AI and open science, where sort of things like open peer review. Do you think that open science and Gen AI sort of can work together?
I really didn't think about it, to be honest, before, because the process we have right now with the peer review in journals and so on is not working anymore. And this is a big problem. But I think if people in open science are really dedicated to what they are doing and not just looking for my higher H index or whatever I want to achieve, then it can work perfectly well. Open AI or ChatGPT and so on has changed a lot. A lot of publications you will find now are just made up with those tools. And this is not really good.
So let's move on to you mentioned that you ran an art gallery for 15 years, and I noticed on your website some very impressive photographs of street furniture in Cologne made out of bronze. So this is a long way from research chemistry or indeed AI. How did you get involved in designing objects for public art in Cologne?
I was always interested in the arts, and I was trying to also draw and paint and so on, but I was not really a good painter, not a good artist at all. But however, I was able to visit a lot and revisit art studios all over the world during my travelings and so on. And when I become the head of a local society, we're thinking about improving the environment in a certain quarter of the city. Nobody was there able to do it. And I said, I give it a try. And then I tried it and people loved it. And at the end, those plates were built. Originally, the plates were 3D printed and then made out of bronze finally and put in the ground. And they were very happy. And I also was able to create a iron sculpture for this road and so on. The people loved what I did there, but it is not art like a Picasso or so. It is something nice, and it is sustainable because of the material and so on, and the people love it, but it is of a local, very local topic.
How many of these bronze plates did you make?
25, actually. And every bronze plate is linked to a story about the part of the city. So, for example, there's one about artists which are famous in this part, and then you see faces of the artists, or you can find references to the Roman origin. This street is one of the oldest streets in Cologne. It was left and right from the streets are the graves of the soldiers. And when you go to the cathedral in the center, which was inside the walls of the Roman city, Do you have there a connection to a website which explains that archaeologists find a lot of stuff in the ground, left and right from a city, and it can be seen now in one of the big museums in Cologne? And so I'm telling also the story on the website for each individual plate. And I used also pictures from the Cologne image archive, which has all the images of the city since photography was available in the city and so on. So it's like a outside museum together with your smartphone.
It's fascinating. It seems to very apt for a city which has got such sort of such an impressive collection of not one but two art galleries, and the classical art gallery, the older art gallery, many works by local painters, actually painted in Cologne itself, which I think is exceptional for any city. But you yourself take photos of Cologne, and you work in black and white. Why black and white?
I started photography about 30 years ago when my first child was born, and then over the time I was looking at all the photographers, famous and so on. I looked at Ansel Adams. I looked at old photography from Lee Miller, for example. And I was also always fascinated about the clearness and the reduction of color, which puts a focus on what is on the picture. And I always loved that. And I think color is also beautiful, and on a smartphone it always looks bright, but it's too much information, and you are disturbed by so many colorful and high contrast spots that you, in most cases, do not get what is the message of that particular picture. And so I love the reduction to black and white.
Well, it's been fascinating talking to you, Thorsten, and I think it's invaluable that you created these tools for writing a thesis and making use of AI, and very encouraging to hear how keen you are to experiment and make creative use of AI, rather than sort of starting by attempting to put limitations and restrictions on how AI can be used. So I look forward to hearing more examples of your work in making use of AI for the scholarly process. So thanks very much for your time, Thorsten.
Yeah, thank you also. It was very interesting talking to you, and also reflecting a little bit of what I'm doing, probably sometimes without a plan. But it is interesting that the outcome is of interest. Thank you.
Thanks again.